Right, welcome guys. Avatar Fire and Ash has its box office projections and it's looking like it's going to do less than Avatar The Way of Water, which I think is interesting when you pair it with the video I did yesterday where James Cameron basically said, if this is where it ends, this is where it ends. Effectively teasing that this movie does need to do pretty damn well at the box office. Now, I'm not going to say this movie's going to be a failure. It's not. This movie's going to be, I would imagine, a massive success. Whether I, sort of buy into the hype and the reasoning why they're hugely successful or not, it's kind of besides the point. We know that these movies are successful, so this will be a success. But there is diminishing returns in this franchise. And we're seeing it every single time they release a movie. So this here specifically, Avatar Fire and Ash, lights up on tracking with $110+ million opening projection. That's actually really not that good by comparison to the previous movie. So the previous movie, or at least this is just projections, and they could be wrong, by the way, right? They could be massively wrong. But the previous movie, okay, so Avatar The Way of Water did $134.1 million, whereas this film is just $110 million. Now, to put it into sort of context, the tracking for Avatar The Way of Water said it would do between 150 and 175 million, and then it underperformed. It only did 134. I say only. These are still massive numbers. But it's underperforming versus the tracking, the trajectory. Or the trajectory, should I say. And so this film, they're saying $100 to $130 million. It's quite strange, actually. It's quite strange. Same time period, same sort of, trade doing the projections. It's quite a drastic difference. You got to remember that there's a lot of variation now on ticket sales. And so I thought I kind of went back basically to see what Avatar did and what Avatar The Way of Water did overall. Because there is a massive, there's a huge decline basically. So the original 2009 release of Avatar, it earned $2.74 billion worldwide, which again is mental. Absolutely madness money. It's crazy. But then this one, Avatar The Way of Water, you start adjusting for things, for inflation. You start changing things for variable ticket pricing, which is something which was brought in massively between Avatar and Avatar 2. It's not looking that much of a success in terms of the foot traffic. It's still a successful film monetarily. But in overall footfall, it has declined. Right? Declined from 1 to 2. Even just in pure raw numbers, 2.3 billion is obviously significantly less than $2.7 billion. These are still billions of dollars though. And so what is insane. Like, that is mad money. But there's a big difference here. We're seeing the trajectory go down, quite drastically, actually. And I think the key for me here is that they thought The Way of Water would open to 150 and 175, and it only did 134. They're expecting this to do 100 to 130 million. Now, this could be a genuine projection, or it could be a projection by which they're hoping it will do more, so they will say it overperforms, which is something that the trades do. But it's quite a lot, really. It's quite that's quite low by comparison to what it should be. It's tracking lower and lower each time. Again, it's still great money. This is still massive cash. But let's get into what they say. So you don't get to those numbers unless it's a 4-quadrant movie. And Avatar Fire and Ash is strong with men and women in first choice, mostly men, but also solid enough with women. Note, it's behind the first choice numbers of Avatar: Way of Water, which opened to 134.1 million, and that's just fine. Note, unlike most Marvel Studios movies, Avatar movies are appointment viewing. Audiences seek out the best 3D, IMAX, and premium large format seats. There's no Easter eggs going on a la a Marvel movie, which require an immediate rush out by fans. So Avatar: Way of Water's tracking indicated $150 to $175 million opening 3 years ago, but the sequel came in below that. What went wrong? Tracking was working off the gas and comparison to Sony Marvel Studios' Spider-Man No Way Home and the holiday seasons prior, which posted the second biggest domestic opening ever at $260.1 million, behind Avengers Endgame. Note, for Avatar: Way of Water to come out and open to $134 million 13 years after the original movie's $77 million opening, well, that was fantastic. Nothing to ding. When we're talking about the opening for Avatar: Fire and Ash, consider Avatar: Way of Water's domestic start essentially the ceiling in regards to a first weekend comp. So Avatar: The Way of Water did a 5 times multiple of its domestic opening for a final of $688.4 million in US and Canada. But that was still actually significantly less than what the first movie did. I mean, 785 million. Do you see that? It is declining. I know people want to hype these movies up, and I'm not trying to take that away from you, but the numbers don't lie. It is declining. Now, this one might smash Avatar: The Way of Water to oblivion, and thus the trajectory theory is completely, moot at that point. But it's still worth noting on the lead up, just in case I prove to be correct and it is a downward trend. So during the press tour of The Way of Water earlier this fall, for The Way of Water, do you mean Fire and Ash? Cameron said he's not committing to a 4th Avatar movie, despite having footage in the can, until the success of the 3rd movie is determined. That's because these movies cost a ton. The Way of Water was the most profitable Hollywood movie of 2022, earning well over $500 million in the black. So the original Avatar did a crazy 10 times multiple off its $77 million opening for a final of $785.2 million. The combined franchise total from Avatar over 2 movies is $5.26 billion. Cameron owns the first Avatar at $2.92 billion, third Avatar Way of Water, and fourth Titanic at $2.26 billion. Highest grossing movies of all time at the global box office, a feat no other filmmaker can boast in the top 10 movies of all time. So it's interesting. It's really, really quite interesting. But the tracking, the trend, is a downward one. But will it beat it? Will Avatar: Fire and Ash come out and blow everyone away to the point where, the trend stops and actually it beats out The Way of Water? Because that's actually what it needs to do. It needs to beat Avatar: The Way of Water. If it gets less than Avatar, The Way of Water, then what you are seeing here is something which you can't argue with, which is a downward trend of interest. It's still huge interest, though. Don't get me wrong, it's still massive interest and people love these movies. Right? $2 billion is still mental money, obviously. But the trend is still something worth noting. Anyway, thought we'd cover this. Leave your thoughts down below. Bye-bye now.